Hey folks, Charlie Shelton here, Zippity Doodad. I am at Six Flags Magic Mountain for Fright Fest Extreme. I'm going to be seeing a lot of the houses and the scare zones and everything, and then we're going to go back to the office and talk about everything we've seen. So come along with us. Now, I haven't been to Six Flags Fright Fest in many years. I used to go every year back in the early 2000s when they were really good, and then they just kind of got to be less good. And I've dropped in every few years just to kind of check on how things are going now and again, but I haven't been back, I think, since like 2017, 2018, so it's been a little while for me. So I'm coming in basically completely fresh on this, and I got to experience the entire event. Six Flags brought me out to see everything last night on Friday the 13th to do the media event. It had already been open for almost a week at that point, so it's kind of been everywhere, but we got to come out and see everything they have to offer. So I got to go through all 11 mazes. This is California's largest haunt, as it says on their map. It's the largest haunt, and I think that's the amount of houses they have, because they even beat out Horror Nights, which only has 9, including the Terror Tram, and Six Flags has 11. So there's quite a lot to see and do. Let's jump into it. So I will, not that there's a lot of spoilers or anything, because these are all kind of well-worn territory, but I will do the same thing as I did on my Halloween Horror Nights video and do a spoiler-free review for those of you looking for that. So if you jump down to this time code right here, then you can have a spoiler-free version of this. So if you're still here, I'm going to assume you want spoilers, you want to see the inside of houses, you want to see everything that Six Flags has to offer. So let's get after it. A few things to note about the event overall. This is a smaller amusement park as opposed to Knott's or Universal, which are larger theme park haunts. It's a specific designation, but it's, I think, a very important one in this case. Six Flags is investing in IP this year, intellectual property, so they've got Stranger Things and Trick or Treat and Conjuring. It seems like they're trying to swing for the fences and fight in the same weight class as Universal, and I don't think that's necessarily the right move. Six Flags has always done well with a shoestring budget. There are 2 mazes in particular that I can think of. One was just entirely chain link fence, and another one was entirely lattice with fake plants on it. And 2 of the best mazes, 2 of the most creative mazes that I've ever seen, because they did so much on so little, and the gags or the scares were so well done and so well planned out. So I respect how Six Flags can do really good things with next to no money. And once they start incorporating more money and they get a little bit bigger because they think they're gonna try and come after Horror Nights, like they're not going to come after Horror Nights. That's not what this is. And so, like Happy Hogan says, aim for the middle.
The problem might be that you're reaching a little too high. Aim for the middle and you'll never miss.
You need to find your place of where it is. They're a really good regional park haunt. It's fun for LA, but you're not going to be bringing people in like from Florida to come and do this the way Horror Nights is. And they're not an institution like Knott's is. I think those Knott's and Universal are in their own class here, and Six Flags should be trying to compete with like the Haunted Hayride and Queen Mary and stuff. Like, it's a different class. It's not bad, but like if you put the featherweight champion in with a heavyweight loser, he's still going to get smushed, like they're just different weight classes. And it's not that that's a problem. It's just that like right now you're looking at like a middleweight or a featherweight champion here, and they really don't need to be coming for the big boys. So I think this year with all the new IP haunts are a little bit
different. And if you go in with the expectation that you're going to see Horror Nights, you're going to be a little disappointed. But if you're looking at it as this is a nice little regional amusement park with a few spook houses, and now they have Stranger Things, like that kind of sets the tone and makes it a little bit better. I know I'm including this in the roundup with some of the other bigger houses, but this one really is kind of separate. They're not, it's not in the same class. So that's just one thing to note. Also, throughout the entire event, directional signage is non-existent. The park map, which there it is, this is what they had, and they posted it on social media, and they gave it to us at the media event. It was as a PDF. It doesn't really show a lot. Like, the only thing that's labeled is the park entrance. So unless you're very, very familiar with Six Flags Magic Mountain, you're not really going to be able to find your way through very easily. And then when you do get to a house, it's, you know, this little tiny sign, and you can see the stanchions and stuff, and that's fine. But at one point I thought we were getting in line for Tatsu, and it ended up being the line for the Conjuring because they look so similar. And so there's this little tiny sign, and then when you finally do see where the house is, it's either, you know, like the Conjuring had a nice big banner that I missed because we were walking in the walkway, not walking directly into the house. So if you don't know it's there and you don't know to look for it, it's very hard to find. And I stopped several times throughout the night and spoke with other groups of guests who were having difficulty. So we all kind of banded together as guests and shared, you know, where we've found houses and wayfinding by crowdsourcing. So it was a bit of a headache to get through it all, and with so many houses, like there's so much to find, having this little map is kind of helpful, at least because you have the checklist of what to do. But I'm also going to do my best with each of these houses to tell you where they are, so that if this is something you want to see, you have a general idea of where to go. So all that being said, let's jump into this. We're going to go down the list of haunted houses they have here. Saw, Legacy of Terror. This is a returning maze. It's back kind of between the two parts of the DC universe. It's if you're facing DC Universe, you go left. If you're facing Metropolis and Riddler and all that, you go right. So it's right in between there. It's based on the Saw films, the franchise, so it's not one in particular. And they had this one last year, which I didn't get to see it at Fright Fest, but I did do the Scream Break that they did in the early summer, where they just kind of bring back some of the houses that are still standing and give you a few things to do in the early summer, which was fine. You know, like it was not really focused on being a real scare time. It was more fun and goof around. But this was the one house where it was like, actually, okay, there are a few good scares in here. It seems a little basic in that, like, there's a lot of rooms that are just kind of empty or with set dressing, and that goes for every maze here at Six Flags. Like, it seems like there's only 1/3 of the staffing that they need in a lot of these houses. 1/3 or 1/4. Like, there were some houses where it honestly feels like you get maybe 4 or 5 interactions in a 5-minute maze. And being that it was media night and I was filming everything, we did just stand in the room for a while waiting for someone to pop out or something, and nothing ever happened. So there was a lot of dead space. And with this, with Saw, there's a lot of dead space as well, but at least the characters, you know, the Jigsaw killer with the mask, we got to see the doll at one point. You got the bathroom scene from the first one, which is iconic, but there's nothing else to me that was really like, wow. You know, they had the one trap with the eyes, the suctioning out the eyes, I guess. But beyond that, there wasn't like a whole lot of really intricate traps or any of the stuff that I've seen from Saw. It was just kind of using those characters in a mostly empty maze. So I wasn't a huge fan. I think it could have been done better, especially because there are so many sets and props and gags from those films that you can pull on, and I didn't see them using a lot of that. Like if they're paying to license the IP, you should probably use more of the stuff from the films instead of just a bunch of tile surfaces that say I want to play a game or something. Like I would have liked to have seen more actual stuff from the film. Next up is Stranger Things. This one is right next to Wonder Woman. So as you're walking towards the Wonder Woman coaster, it's off to the left, and you'll see on this this big building, which I believe used to be like the Q building for Green Lantern First Flight. It kind of looks similar, but you'll see Hawkins High and Hawkins Pride and stuff. So that's where Stranger Things is. This one was my favorite house of the night, hands down, far and away. And this isn't, you know, qualified compared to the others. This was just a straight up good house. Again, a little rudimentary in that some of the rooms were just like a clock on a wall, or, you know, like there's not a lot of set dressing. It's individual things that you're looking at that kind of set the tone for the room. But their Vecna was really cool. They had Eddie come running out at one point, which was nice to see. And the thing that really sold it for me was the particulates floating in the air. Like even Universal, when they did Stranger Things year after year, didn't get this right. This set the tone. The moment you walk into the Upside Down, it starts, and it just lasts for the rest of the maze because you're just in and out of the Upside Down the whole time. There's no real story or progression of anything. So like you go into the Upside Down, and that's where this starts, and then it just, this effect stays for the entire time. But it was so cool and so much more immersive because as you're walking through, just you can see, you know, tracking around these particulates. It makes it feel so much more real of what we saw in the show. And they didn't do that at Universal. They had a lot of projections at Universal when they've done Stranger Things there. This one got it right. And so it was really cool and really immersive. And I think that one bit of that one immersive gag really set the tone for like, you're going to enjoy this house. And then they had a really well done Demogorgon. They only had one of them, and they had one Demogorgon dog, and then Vecna, and that was kind of it. I didn't see Eleven. I didn't see any of the other characters other than Eddie. But you know, again, they're not really using a lot of the IP that they're paying for. I feel like they could do a little bit more with it, but what was there was so cool and well done, and it provided several good visuals for some nice photos and video capture that I was very pleased with it. So this one was my favorite one, and the benefit of there being 11 haunts, and also it's, you know, a smaller event that people aren't as attracted to as much, there was like no wait. Like we had the express pass, and I spoke to another family who paid for the express pass and they kind of regretted it. But like we were there on Friday the 13th. You would think you'd be in line forever, and Saw had a bit of a line early in the night, and The Conjuring had like a 45-minute line, but Stranger Things was walk up, and most of these mazes, you know, out of the 11 mazes, I think probably 8 or 9 of them were just walk-ups. So the fact that you can walk up to Stranger Things and then get out of the house and walk right back in was awesome. That one I really enjoyed, so I have a lot of good to say about this. Trick or Treat. This is another really hard one to find. If you go back past the Justice League ride, there's an entrance back in the corner, like next to the Riddler's Revenge. This is where, and then you go down a little pathway that they lead you down. But you'll see the stanchions out front of Riddler's Revenge. That's not for the coaster, that's for the house. So Trick or Treat is another one that Universal did years ago, so I'm trying not to compare it in my mind to that. There were some things that were really well done here and some things that were just kind of, you know, a room that was empty. I think Sam was underutilized. He had a cool throne at the end, which was a nice photo op. But the rest of it, like I could have seen Sam a few more times, would have been nice because he's the iconic character from it. But the bus crash scene that goes down in the water, they used that the laser with the smoke to simulate the water. That was really cool. So it's hit and miss, and again, there's not a lot of characters in the maze. I think I could have used more characters and more stuff going on because there's a lot of rooms where you just walk through some pumpkins and that's it. I could have used more people in the maze, but for the effects that were there, the gags that they installed were really cool, kind of on that mid-level of like, I'm glad that they did that, that they were able to use some of that technology to hit the moments in the story of the movie that needed to be told that way. So that was cool. Army of the Dead. This one is backed by Apocalypse the Ride. There's two of them. It's this and Aftermath Nocturnal Hunt, which we're going to cover next. They split off, and so as you're going past West Coast Racers and all that in the underground area, you go left for Army of the Dead, you go right for Aftermath. And Army of the Dead, once you start getting over in that area, you'll see it. There's a giant fireball, and that's like a huge frontispiece that really attracts you, pulls you in, and it's a nice little thing to walk around. So this is, from the Netflix show, and it's just Dead Las Vegas. I didn't see a lot that really tied it directly to Army of the Dead. It was more just like spooky Las Vegas zombies and stuff. And there were a couple of characters here and there, but for the most part, it was just a Fallout zone, zombies and stuff like that. And walking in through the crashed cars and the fireball and all that sets the tone for it. It was a pretty cool thing to see that big frontispiece. Again, not enough characters, and I don't think there were any scares that were actually like good. They were just kind of basic, and a lot of people just yelling. Like these characters are going to throw out their voice. Doing this for the run of the show. It goes through November 3rd, and like if you're doing this 3-4 times a week, just screaming full voiced, it's gonna burn you out after a while. So, but that's neither here nor there. It was just a lot of yelling as you go through, and it's fine. It was cool though to see that giant fireball frontispiece. So right next to that, instead of turning left, if you turn right, is Aftermath Nocturnal Hunt. This one, I don't know what this house was about. It was just kind of, it wasn't quite zombies. It wasn't quite vampires. There was like a radioactive thing at one point with eggs. It was kind of all over the place, and it was very dark because it's an outdoor maze, so there's a lot of ground to cover. It was very dark and hard to see. And there are times when, trying to maximize the space, you go into this very large room and there's 2 or 3 characters there, and then other spaces where there's nobody. The characters here, at least there's more characters here in this maze, I think, than there were in a lot of the other mazes. But then there are times where, you walk into a room and you got to go all the way around, so now you're spending like 30 seconds with this character, which doesn't sound like a lot when you say it like that, but like think about any of this character interactions you usually have. It's usually a jump and fade out. This one is like we're now interacting with 2 or 3 characters while we're circumnavigating a room, and I don't, for a lot of the characters here, I don't get the feeling that they've had a lot of quality training. Just like, so I've worked with people from Universal, from Knott's, and I've put on haunts myself. My dad and I have a VFX company, and we do haunts for charities. Like we design and build and operate Halloween haunts for charities. So we did, the LA Sheriff's Station and the Parks Department and a bunch of other stuff. I've worked with high schoolers who, with the proper training, can do better than this. That's not to say they're bad. I genuinely don't think that the characters know any different, and they're just kind of doing what they want. That's the impression I get. I could be entirely off base on that, but that was the impression I got from walking through these houses. It just didn't feel like there was no consistency in the way they were scaring or what they were saying or any of that kind of stuff, from not just from one house to the next, but from one character to the next. And we were in one house, which we haven't gotten to yet, but we were in one house where there were two characters in one room, and somebody said, run, you need to get out. And the other one said, no, don't listen to her, stay here. And it's like, you know, I'm not literally going to stay there. Like, we know it's all fake, but like even just having the conflicting messaging within the same room is like, it should be, that's something that one needs to think about when designing the haunt. And with this one, it was a lot of people screaming. And when you have to spend 30 seconds with somebody in the room, and we're the only ones, so they're just hitting us over and over. And it's like, I didn't get scared the first time, I'm not gonna get scared the 7th time. And at a certain point, like, it's just loud yelling at me. Like, it's just a person yelling at me, getting right in my face. A couple of times we were hit where somebody jumps out and hit either myself or my sister who was filming all of these. I've backed up into people. I've had people trip over me. Like, there's a lot of closeness here because there's like not, there doesn't seem to be one consistent rule of like what you can do and what you can't do. And so a lot of the people who are here just kind of go at their own pace and do what they want to do. And so in this house particularly, because there were so many characters and I got to see it, that's where you start to see people tripping over each other. You start to, you know, we're getting in tight quarters and they get into you, and then the monster's like backed into a wall of like, I don't want to touch you, but like I have nowhere else to go because this guy's right here. And like, it just, for so many of them that were so spread out and so empty, and even in this maze, there are stretches where it's just empty and you're just walking for, you know, a minute or so without seeing anybody. And then there's other ones where it's so tight quarters and there's 2 or 3 people in that space and it's just too much. So it's unevenly paced. This one, I gotta say, I don't really know what it's about. I don't know why it's here. And it's I think lowest on the list for me of actually, no, that's not true. This is second lowest on the list for me. Let's move on. The Conjuring Universe. This one was actually pretty good. Again, very empty. This is one of the ones that didn't have enough people, and you'd walk into rooms and kind of like, I see where there's supposed to be someone there and there isn't. And it, again, if it was 1 or 2 times where it's like, oh, maybe we caught somebody during a shift change, or like somebody had a moment and had to step out, take a breather, whatever, I'd understand. And like at Horror Nights, it was so hot, we were losing people, lots of empty scare places. But even at that, it wasn't as empty as this, and that was 116 degrees. This was a lovely evening. So it was so consistent across so many houses that I have to think it's an operational choice. But The Conjuring could have used more people, but the people who were in there were really cool. There's a couple of really good gags, one with the nun, there was somebody on a bungee thing, like good scares. I feel like this one, they actually used enough of the Conjuring universe between the nun and Annabelle and like those visuals and props that you've come to expect from the Conjuring films seemed to be used a little more. Again, no story or anything progressing you through the house, but it at least utilized the IP, I think, fully. This is my second favorite house. This was the only one I got a scare in, and it's because of the way things were angled. Like, there were a lot of creepy visuals, and there was one that actually got me. So I appreciate this, and this one is one that's not to be missed if you're going to be here. Willoughby's Resurrected. This is one that's been around forever. I remember seeing this one years and years ago, like a long time ago, and it's just kind of evolved over time. And then they moved up to this spot. It's on Samurai Summit, way up at the top next to the observation tower that's closed, but that's where there's a set of stairs that lead you down from like the entrance of the observation tower. There's a set of stairs that lead you down to the entrance to Willoughby Resurrected. And this is just, I guess, like a classic spook house. And the production design and the production value on this, I think, is the highest of any maze they have, just because of the space, like the way it's set up, and it's a lot of real props, not, you know, just things thrown in there. So many of these rooms, when you need to decorate an entire room, it's, you know, a chair and a table and that's it. Or, you know, like Stranger Things, just a clock on a wall sometimes. This one actually felt like it was fully designed and fully laid out and fully decorated. So there was more, but I didn't, I guess I just didn't enjoy it. Like I'm really trying to find some positivity here. There was nothing that got me other than I'm walking through a room with a teenager yelling at me, you know, like in every case. There were no cool gags. It just kind of felt like, I don't know, like something you would find at like a church fundraiser spook house with this one, because there was nothing really cool. Suffice it to say, this one wasn't my favorite. It was kind of basic. Like, it's a classic for this event, and it's been around for literally years and years and years. But you know, it's skippable. Sewer of Souls. This is also up on Samurai Summit. It's just a little further down from Willoughby Resurrected. It's as you're heading down the path to go back down the mountain, it's off to the left. This is one of the ones that's actually easy to see because there's a nice big bright light up sign. And this is one of the few that I actually saw from the pathway and knew to go over to. It's you're just going through a sewer, and it's lots of, you know, poop jokes, and there's a giant rat puppet, which is kind of nice. That's pretty cool. It just, I don't really, this is another one. I don't really understand not only what's going on, but like, what are they going for? And there weren't enough people to really sell it. So there's a lot of empty space of just walking through rooms. It isn't worth walking up the hill for. That's all I have to say. Vault 666 unlocked. This is the only one of all of the original haunts that I actually really enjoyed. If nothing else, just for the cool, creepy stuff that they put in there. So it's all, you know, demonic artifacts that are locked in a vault, and then we get to walk through the vault. And some of the stuff they had, there's like a candle or a chandelier of skulls, and there's a cool skeleton statue and an alien skull at one point. Like, there's a bunch of neat things to see. I didn't feel as many dead spaces in this maze, because like where there were people is like, great, they're you know, we have something to interact with. And even when there weren't any people in the space, there was still cool stuff to see. So it's not that there was like plenty of characters this time, it's just that there was more interesting things to look at, so I didn't feel the dead space as much. And the stuff that was there was really cool. Somebody had a great time just gluing things together and, like, you know, let's go to the Halloween store and really make something fun. And there were a few characters in there that were you know, kind of funneling us through and keeping us going. So this one, out of all the original haunts or the original concepts, this was the one that I actually enjoyed. And this is also close to the front of the park. I forgot to say, the Vault 666 unlocked, Condemned, Forever Damned, and Truth or Dare are all right near the front of the park. They're just off of the Full Throttle Plaza, but you have to actually go through as you're walking in, and you go through past the fountain and everything, and you'll see the big sign that says Six Flags. You turn right, and there's Full Throttle. You walk through Full Throttle Plaza, and it's on the back side of this, but what you have to do is walk through, turn around, and there's like a backward entryway. There's a big gate open, and there's no like signage or anything for it, but there's just a big open gate. And you go back in through there, and that's where the entrance to these three houses are. And then once you do the first one, which the first one you can see from there is Truth or Dare, but then you can actually stand there and see all three houses. So these last three, as we're in the home stretch, are easy to find. Once you get through that backstage area, then you can see them all, and they're easy to find once you get in there. Vault 666 unlocked was fun enough, and this is kind of what I was expecting. This is like the top level of what I can expect from them, where it's kind of creepy and kind of fun, but you know, it's once again, managed expectations makes it enjoyable. Condemned, Forever Damned. This is one that they had out, I assume last year, and they also had it out for Scream Break, and we got to go through. It was a condemned house party, so it wasn't focused during Scream Break. It wasn't focused on like real scares. It was more goofy and fun. So like when you see this dilapidated shack that you're walking through, it's not trying as much to be creepy. It's more like a frat party that's gotten out of hand. So in the front room where you walk in, there's like a guy in a college kid in a toga who's a zombie who's got a beer bong or something. Like it was more fun. This is a more creepy version, and I see why they leave this up throughout the year, because this one is fully decked out. This is like, it really does look like an entire shack, and you're walking through and you can walk, you go through the house and there's creepy denizens in the house and all that, but the set decoration feels fully fleshed out. It feels like a real haunt that they took the time to actually build in the proper way. One thing that I found out during Scream Break from talking to other people who were there with me is when you go in, there's one point where you can choose which way you want to go. You can either keep walking down the hallway or you can sneak through the walls. And during Scream Break, I didn't know that, so I just walked down the hallway. This time I snuck through the walls, and it's tight, but that's part of the fun. Like if you can make it through there, it's a cool little thing to sneak through the walls of this condemned haunted house. And so there's no signage or anything. Nobody says that you can do it, but like you'll see it as you approach. There's a space where you can fit through the walls, and it's just a nice little thing to have a choose your own adventure as you're going through the haunt. So this one was definitely better now than it was at Scream Break, and it's one of the better set decoration jobs that they've done, and I assume they leave it up all year because this was done just in early summer. It was still standing, so I don't imagine they've taken it down several times. And it looks lived in. It looks really built. So this would be one to see, and especially because there's 3 of them right there. You can knock them all out at once, and you don't have to worry about wayfinding. That right there, you should hit all 3 of these. So last up is Truth or Dare. This one I think was the most ambitious in terms of storytelling. It's set to be an old 1950s style game show, like To Tell the Truth or What's My Line or something like that. But each of the games that they play on the show is a dare. So it's hold your breath or this or that and all these things. But then when the show gets in trouble for injuring their guests, the show host just basically traps all of us in there as her new guests, and we have to go through these things. I actually understood the story here. I saw it was unfolding. There's newspapers taped to the wall that you don't have time to read, but I did take photos of them so that I could read them later. And it kind of tells the story of how this game show host and the production team and everything went too far and got in trouble and then became psychotic. You don't really need to read that to get that from the house, which I like. You can walk through the house and actually understand the story from room to room, and that to me is the hallmark of a good house. That's what a lot of the bigger parks do, and even smaller ones. So, it's just a matter of making that choice to do storytelling from room to room, and they did make that choice. I don't think a lot of the gags worked. I don't think there were enough characters in the maze. There were definitely rooms that were empty and that we could have used another gag or something to reinforce that, but the bare bones of the story, you can at least pick it up as you walk through. So that, I admire their effort. Even if it didn't 100% land, I admire the effort in what they were trying to do with this. They did have one particularly cool gag with those inflatable balloons that they put in some mazes that you have to like squeeze through, and this one was rear projected with bees. So if you're afraid of bees, that's not fun for me, but I appreciate the gag, and that's the only time I've ever seen rear projected balloons you have to walk through. That was pretty cool. So I did leave this one with a smile on my face, which is it's something I can enjoy going through, even if it doesn't 100% land. At least I admire the effort, and the couple of gags that did work really worked. So this is one, because they're all 3 right there, like Condemned and Vault 666 and Truth or Dare. All three of them are like, this is okay. Like, this is kind of what I expect from like a regional amusement park haunt. They're not great. Again, they're not going to be within striking distance of Horror Nights, but these three are like fun and classic, and I see where they were going with it. If they had more characters in there, I think it really would have set it off, but they would need to hire like 2 or 3 times the amount of characters they currently employ to flesh out all the mazes. But for what it is, these are a good time. So I'm not going to go too deep into the scare zones because there are a lot of them, and they're kind of spread out. You know, they're all over the park, but like you don't even really know when you're walking into or out of a scare zone. It just kind of like there's a lighting change, and now I'm in a scare zone. And one of them that I still can't figure out what it is. It was, and because the map is so basic, I don't like. It was just there was a bunch of birds, and I can't tell if that was like Exile Hill or Grimlore Ridge. Like, I can't tell. Nightmares actually had a sign. I understood that one. And the Wizard of Oz one, I understood. That was hands down the best one. It was a Twisted Wizard of Oz. That's over near Colossus, Twisted Colossus. And it's Twisted Wizard of Oz. So you have these giant flying monkeys at the entrance with Oz on their cuffs. So you can tell what that is. And then there's the witch and the scarecrow and stuff. That one's easy to pick up. But that was cool, and seeing the twisted versions, and the witch on stilts stopped for a minute, gave me a few really great photos, and it's just fun goofing around with the flying monkeys and stuff. So overall, like City Under Siege is just a bunch of clowns, not the Joker's clowns, but just kind of clowns in general, and they do their sliders and stuff. So it's nice to see, but then also at the same time you have giant Christmas balls in the Halloween City Under Siege. So it's a little, I don't understand why the Christmas balls are there, other than it seems like a whole thing to take them down, so they just don't. But like, it throws off the Halloween vibe. So with all the scare zones, they're fun, and you know, they set the tone, and I think I enjoyed them almost more than the mazes, but it was hard to tell when you're in and out of them, and hard to tell which one was what. So you're just going in for like a general, you know, spooky vibe, and that's okay. So that's everything we're going to cover. I didn't do any of the shows or anything, the sliders or any of that kind of stuff. I didn't do any of the shows, just because there was so much to cover with all of the mazes and all that. So if you've jumped down to this time code, you want a spoiler-free review of Six Flags Magic Mountain's Fright Fest Extreme. This was, I think, not one of the haunts. It's not going to compete with Universal or Knott's. This is, you got to kind of manage your expectations of what this is. This is a mid-level amusement park, regional park haunt. With that being said, I still think for what they did, being the largest haunt, they need more people, they need more characters, they need to try a little bit more. That's not to say it's not fun, because it's still Six Flags. You're walking around with your friends and, you know, drink a couple of beers, goofing around. I will say there were a lot of kids here. This is a good haunt, a starter haunt for kids or people who aren't really you know, used to going to the bigger haunts, because you're not going to get scared as much. It's kind of spooky to walk through, and there's an occasional scare, but there aren't enough characters either in the mazes or the scare zones to really like inundate you in the way Horror Nights. If you're not a fan of being scared, they're gonna see it, they're gonna know it, and they're gonna come after you. Here, there's not enough people to really do that. So if you want to try it out, if you want to bring your kids, I saw a lot of kids who this is probably their first haunt, and this is a great starter haunt because it's not going to hit you too hard. And if you can handle this, maybe you can move up to one of the bigger parks. But for what this is, it's a nice way to take that first step into the haunt space for wanting to do this. But for seasoned haunt people, I don't think it's going to provide enough, either in scares, in production design, in layout, in any of those kind of things. I've seen better individual mazes like in backyards and stuff, and that's not to say these aren't worth it. It's just to say, you know, I know Six Flags can do a little bit better than what they're doing right now. And it's difficult. I don't want to, you know, rain on anybody's picnic with this. So if this is your thing, please, you know, enjoy it fully. But for me, myself, because I'm really into the haunts and stuff, and I've seen so many of them over so many years, I've seen what Six Flags used to do. I know they can do better than this, and that's kind of how I've felt the last many years, is they're just not pushing to what they could be. Wayfinding is difficult, and that's an easy fix. Putting out an actual map would be an easy fix to help us in doing it, or signs throughout the park, you know, anything like that. Hiring more characters to come in and populate the houses would be an easy fix. And I just feel like there's a lot of things that were overlooked or missed from the conceptual design on down. So that being said, I think if you go with your friends and you're having a couple of drinks, the food is actually really enjoyable. I've got a video on all of the food that they let us try coming up, so that'll be on the channel as well. I'll link it here. And that was enjoyable. The drinks are nice, so it's a fun time to walk around with your friends, and maybe it's a good one to mix in with people who do haunts and people who don't. There's a nice middle of the road. So that's all I've got to say on this. I will have more coming up with Knott's when it opens next week. I've got Legoland coming and maybe a few more here and there. Thank you guys so much for stopping by, and if you're interested in any more Halloween haunt stuff, check out the channel. I've got tons more. We'll see you next time.